Hey, folks! Let's dive into the early World of Warcraft alpha and beta promotional screenshots from Archivecraft today. This marks the second installment of our series, where we're delving into images captured by Blizzard themselves to promote the game between 2000 and 2003. Now, take note that some elements in these screenshots are intentionally set up and may not have made it into the final game. Keep that in mind as we explore. And before we kick things off, be sure to hit that subscribe button because there are likely a couple more parts to come. We've got a ton of intriguing images to sift through. Let's kick things off with our first screenshot, taking us to Duskwood. Now, this seems to be in the early stages of development because none of the icons or even the minimap made it to the final game. I'd also venture to say that the specific area shown here doesn't currently exist in Duskwood, and that house model on the left side didn't make the cut for the final version. It's interesting to note that human zones were among the first to be crafted for the game, which could explain why Duskwood appears to be quite developed at this early stage in the development process. Moving on to our next image, still in the realm of Duskwood, and it's packed with models that didn't make it to the final cut of the game. This looks like it could be an early version of Darkshire, or perhaps another town that was initially planned for Duskwood. The variety of models hints at the creative process and how things evolved as they fine-tuned the game for its eventual release. It's always fascinating to see the paths not taken in the development journey. Now, taking a different perspective in this image, we get another look at the town, accompanied by an old human model. This gives us a glimpse into the evolution of character designs and how the town's layout was being experimented with during the developmental phase. Now, here's another angle of the town, showcasing houses that feature old models that ultimately didn't make it to the final version of the game. Despite their exclusion, there's a certain old-school charm to these structures. Wrapping up our tour of the town, here's the last image. The layout gives me a vibe reminiscent of Darkshire, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below and share your insights on the town's potential identity. Taking a look at this image, we spot an old human female model on the road in Duskwood. The atmosphere in this zone seems notably darker compared to its current state in the game, creating a distinct and moody ambience. Moving on to the next screenshot, we spot the old human model, which interestingly still finds its place in the classic version of the game in a few locations. My hunch is that this scene is from Ravenhill, given the familiar house models that seem to have stood the test of time and made it into the final version of the game. Now, check out this intriguing snapshot. An orc character boldly making an appearance in Duskwood. It's a bit out of the ordinary, considering Duskwood is strictly an alliance zone in the final version of the game. Chances are, this deviation is a promotional choice, showcasing some cross-faction action for added flair. It's always fascinating to see how promotional material sometimes takes creative liberties, offering a glimpse into what could have been, or simply adding an unexpected twist to the familiar Warcraft landscape. Shifting our focus to these images, we're now venturing into Stranglethorn Vale and the Troll Ruins, which remarkably resemble their counterparts in the classic version of the game. This suggests that this particular area was likely crafted quite early in the development process, showcasing the foundational elements that endured throughout Warcraft's evolution. Diving into the next scene, we find ourselves at the entrance of the Zul'Gurub raid. A fascinating discovery considering it wasn't released until patch 1.7 in September 2005. It's intriguing to see that the groundwork for such significant content was laid so early in the game's development. Additionally, the dark portal in the background appears to be a placeholder, emphasizing the iterative nature of game development. Now, take a look at this captivating image. A human adventurer sporting a horned helmet in Stranglethorn Vale. Interestingly, I don't recall this particular headgear making it to the final release of the game. Personally, I find it quite appealing, and the thought of having such distinctive gear during the leveling journey adds a unique touch. This particular image has piqued my curiosity as well. It's a bit of a mystery, but my speculation leans towards it possibly being an early rendition of Gurubashi Arena. I can't help but wonder if the original concept for the arena involved more activities than just player versus player combat and looting chests that spawns periodically. Taking a look at these images, we encounter the old troll models that didn't quite make it into the final version of the game. There's a distinct air of intimidation in these designs, and I can't help but agree that they exude a certain menacing charm. Despite not being implemented widely, it's interesting to note that these old troll models still find a place in a few specific locations in the game. Here we spot a Tauren in Stranglethorn Vale, and it appears that their model was solidified relatively early in the development process. The distinctive features of the Tauren race seem to be well defined, even in these early stages. As for the weapon, I have some uncertainty about whether it made it into the final game. Examining the next image, we come across a tree sentinel in Stranglethorn. Interestingly, in the final version of the game, these beings are typically found in Kalimdor. This suggests that during the early stages of development, there may have been different plans for the distribution of various creatures and entities across the game world. In this intriguing image, we witness a group engaging in combat with the Sentinel. The sight of individuals from different factions fighting side by side raises questions about the possibility of collaboration between opposing factions during certain stages of development. It's also plausible that this scene was orchestrated for promotional purposes, showcasing dynamic and cooperative gameplay. Turning our attention to the next image, we're presented with a scenic landscape that could be either Elwyn Forest or Loch Modan. The presence of a tower in the distance hints towards Elwyn Forest, contributing to the iconic view associated with the zone. Examining yet another image from the same zone, the unfamiliar surroundings suggest that this particular location might have undergone changes during the development process. It's not uncommon for landscapes and specific areas to evolve as the game takes shape, and some locations may be entirely reimagined or replaced. In this scene set in Elwyn Forest, we observe a group of characters, and it catches the eye that the human female is sporting only one shoulder pad. It's a unique and distinctive look that adds a touch of individuality, and I wish we got more of these in the final game. In this next image, we encounter a human female in Elwyn Forest, likely within an early version of Goldshire. What stands out is the size of the settlement, appearing considerably larger than what we ultimately got in the final version of the game. Taking a closer look at this image, we get another angle of the town, and the presence of an orc in Elwyn Forest does strike an odd note. Elwyn Forest is, in the final version of the game, a predominantly human starting area. The inclusion of an orc in this context could be a promotional choice, showcasing diversity or perhaps suggesting alternative scenarios during the development process. Examining this image, we come across an old human guard model that underwent a significant transformation in the final version of the game. In this image, we catch sight of a tower in Elwyn Forest with a striking design. However, despite its visual appeal, it seems this particular model is not enterable and didn't make it into the released version of the game. Examining these additional images from Elwyn Forest, likely from an early version of Goldshire, it's evident that the visual aesthetics are quite appealing. However, it appears that none of these houses are enterable. This is a common aspect of game development, where not all structures or assets are designed for player interaction. Interestingly, some elements such as trees, lanterns, bushes, and the well have persisted and made it into the final version of the game. In this image, we're at Northshire Abbey, and it appears quite similar to what we eventually got in the finalized version of the game. However, A keen eye notices that the walls on the left side of the image underwent a significant redesign in the final version. Examining this image of a group of adventurers in an updated version of Goldshire, a notable difference stands out: the presence of a giant golden statue. This particular element was eventually replaced in the final version of the game, making way for the area used by the Darkmoon Fair. This intriguing image depicts a human female model using a different kind of sitting animation that we got in the final version of the game, and a Tauren who appears to be guarding the tower. The combination of these elements sparks a thought that perhaps the Horde was initially intended to have some form of presence in Elwynn Forest during the early stages of development. In this final image, we see a collection of characters engaged in combat in Elwynn Forest. The orchestrated nature of the scene suggests that it was likely set up specifically for the promotion of the game. These stage scenarios are a common practice in promotional materials, aiming to showcase dynamic and exciting gameplay moments to generate interest and anticipation among potential players. I am planning to create 1 or 2 more episodes for this series where we'll continue exploring these intriguing early images from World of Warcraft's development. There's a wealth of material to dive into, and I find the evolution of the game's visuals and concepts quite fascinating. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming editions. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and enjoyable. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button below. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up by hitting the like button if you found it helpful. Your support really means a lot to me, and it helps me create more valuable content like this in the future.